Sir, may I start?
Please, please.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you so much, sir. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Paki, and wherever you're watching us from, I welcome you all to the Weekend Conversations brought to you by the Eternal Quest in collaboration with the Ahmedabad Book Club, American Corner, and Hello Gujarat. Today we have none other than Bhaswar Mukerjhee with us, who's the author of It Happens, Stories of Human Relationships. What is it in the DNA of bankers that makes them gravitate towards writing at some point of their life? What is it? There appears to be no easy answers to this conundrum. Perhaps it's the sheer herd mentality. Bhaswar denies this generalization and calls himself an accidental writer. With 11 contributions to various anthologies and his solo book of short stories, It Happens, Short Stories of Human Relationships. Bhaswar's writing has been endorsed by the stellar stars of the literary firmament such as the Amitabh Ghosh, Ashwin Sanghi, and by Vinita Dwaranagya, executive director, author, and columnist with the Times of India. His short stories have been placed by Amitabh Ghosh, Ashwin Sanghi, Tuhin Sinha, Upmanyu Chatterjee, and Vivek Shanbhag for various prompts across the 3 seasons of the Write India contest, India's largest crowdsourced short story writing contest under the Times of India. Bhaswar's short stories have been picked by Siddha Murthy and Ravindra Singh for their curated anthologies as well. His contribution, Leap of Faith, was featured in Crossed Knotted, India's first composite novel, a Limca Book of Records entry. A mechanical engineer and an MBA from IIM Bangalore, Bhaswar has had an extremely successful career record of over 17 years with multinational banks in India. He quit in 2005 to set up Bridgepoint Solutions, a learning solutions company in Chennai. A member of the Rotary Club of Madras, Bhaswar is interested in vocational services and he's passionate about theatre and he's also into distance running. So, sir, we welcome you today. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Paki. Delighted to be here.
Thank you so much, sir. And sir, your journey has been very long, as we all can see, and this is something that wasn't easy for you, right? And your journey must have been a roller coaster ride. No matter how successful you are right now, you must have faced certain failures in your life. So, anything that you would want to talk about your journey, because I've introduced you, but nobody else can introduce you better than yourself.
Absolutely. No, thank you for your kind words. First of all, in terms of a journey and success, these are very relative terms because as far as I am concerned, success is always the next book away, all right, or the next deal away. And so there have been a fair amount of, shall we say, hiccups in the writing journey. Actually, I did not start writing. I used to write some kind of poetry in school and college, but it was never serious writing. I got into serious writing only in 2014 when I had written a short story many moons ago, and someone suggested that I enter it for a contest, and that's how it started. Otherwise, I perhaps would never have written anything. The writing, of course, it's important that you kind of express whatever is within yourself whenever you're writing. But I think the more challenging bit about it is, getting published, because I think that's where most writers, especially ones who start off like me, struggle quite a bit.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot. And talking about your book, right? It Happens, short stories of human relationships. So, from where did you come up with this particular idea? Would you mind telling us more about this? And how much
Sure.
do you value human relationships? Because in today's date, everything has an E attached as a prefix to it. You see, everything, we're connected through technology. So how much do you value human relationships and how did you come up with this sort of an idea?
Okay, so as I was mentioning, I started writing in 2014, and then I did write a number of short stories, like you mentioned, picked up by Sudha Murthy and Ravinder Singh and so on. In 2015, there was this Write India contest, and I started writing for every prompt which came. So before long, I had a set of about 30 stories over the 3 seasons, 30 short stories. And it was then which it was we decided. So I approached Readomania and Dipankar, who's a very close friend and a mentor, who's the publisher as well, and we decided that we needed to kind of put 15 of these stories out. And these stories are all about human relationships, okay? And therefore the topic of the book, or the name of the anthology, was actually Dipankar's idea. So that's how the name came. It happens. And that's how we curated some of 15 odd stories from there, and then we put them together in this anthology, which essentially has a number of these entries which I put in the Write India contest. And that is why that's why, and just sorry. So when you say that my writing was endorsed, it is just that both Ashwin Sanghi and Amitav Ghosh, they read these stories which I had submitted for their prompts, and that was their reaction to those submissions specifically. All right. And I was, of course, very blessed to have that kind of thing, and also was very blessed to have a number of the short stories selected among the top 10. And that's how it started. So right now, that's how it happened. Okay. And it initially came out as an ebook because of the pandemic last May, and then it was the physical form came out in November, and this is what the book looks like. So that's what the book is all about.
Yes, sir. This is something very exciting, and I must say that you've got a very unique cover. So, what made you choose that cover? That'll be one question. And the other part of the question is, when this Write India contest started, I remember I was in 9th grade or 8th grade, probably at that point of time. So how were you inspired to work on 30 short stories? Because I, being a school student, I was very demoralized after one short story wasn't selected. So what is that inspiration that you took? So I would definitely love to know that part.
Okay, so just going a little back to the question which you asked me a little while. So the cover was essentially designed by my daughter. She lives and works in California, but she dabbles in arts a little bit. So it was initially conceived by her. So it essentially shows a person in the middle, and it shows two persons and this guy reaching out for their hearts or souls or whatever you wish to call it. So that's how the cover came of this book. The Write India contest. Sorry, can you just tell me a question once again? I think I lost the strain on the question.
Yes, so I asked that how were you so inspired that you worked on so many
stories?
Right.
Okay, right, on the inspiration bit. All right, now I don't know whether it was many years in corporate life that one typically runs towards deadlines. All right, now all these prompts which happened month after month, they all would come out by the 7th or 8th of the month. So there would be a prompt. It could be a few words. It could be a paragraph. It could be whatever. And you had to build your story around that prompt. And typically the submission was by the 30th of the month. All right. So every month you were kind of racing towards a particular deadline. All right. And perhaps it was, as I was mentioning, the corporate life of racing towards deadlines that got me enthused. Every month I felt it was like a new challenge if you could weave a story around that prompt. And that's what I think kept me going. And it also was a good catharsis. It was a good way of kind of letting your creative juices flow. It was a good platform, and I would strongly recommend anybody who's interested just to keep writing, because it's very important to get out whatever you're feeling. So that's how it actually all happened. Every month there was a deadline, and I was racing towards it. That's about it.
Yes, I remember myself also, skimming through these paragraphs and skimming through all the Write India contest things. So just a question that is a little out of context, sir, right now. So what do you prefer? What did you prefer at that very point of time? Because as far as I remember, you could actually use that paragraph anywhere in your story, in the beginning or in the end or somewhere in the middle. So what did you actually prefer doing? Did you prefer using it in the beginning, middle, or towards the end?
See, the location was never important. What was important was the context. So I made sure that the contextually the prompt sat very well, because as you're aware, you could not break the prompt or change it in any form. So it was very important that the context of the story and the prompt sat very well and comfortably together. And that is what I was more concerned with. So I would use it in the beginning, in the middle, in the end, wherever. It didn't really matter as far as
And
the prompts are concerned.
okay, and so what usually comes to you first, the characters or the plot?
This is eternal discussion or debate which goes on, because there are fundamentally two styles of writing. Either you have a plot driven writing, or you have a character driven writing. And typically where the plot driven writing happens, largely works very well with genres like thrillers and mystery and so on and so forth. Having said that, even there, when you look at a human motivation or a human compulsion, why does somebody want to seek revenge? Why does somebody kill? Why does somebody commit a crime? It all boils down to what we call the internal conflict of character. So my writing is very character driven. In fact, so I will labor about the character. I will labor about what is the internal conflict which drives the character, and then I will try, and very often that drives the plot, not the other way around. So for me, whenever I kind of etch out a character and I look at the internal conflict, and that drives the plot in a number of cases. So I am very character focused writing, and that sits well with also the fact that I do write about human relationships, because to me, at the end of the day, that is the microcosm of events happening around us. Okay, so whatever emotion or the way a human being reacts is what actually creates events around us, and that is why I like writing about relationships, or I make that the central theme of most of the writing I've done till date.
All right, so this is something that actually is very exciting for me as well, because to be very honest, when I am going to college and when I am talking to people, I can just see human relationships deteriorating. So this is something that actually is inspiring for the youth of today, that people are still valuing human relationships and people are still writing about human relationships. So this is something I feel that everyone should actually read. So my next question to you, sir, will be, what is your favorite story and why?
From
If
the
you could
book,
find.
well, you see, the book itself has a number of themes. So whilst the basic shall I say, the basic anchor or the pivot is of course a human relationship, it deals with a number of themes. So it deals with love, it deals with revenge, it deals with ethical dilemma, fatalism, nemesis, alternate sexuality, incest. So it deals with a wide variety of topics. All right. And and therefore, if you would ask me which is my favorite story, it becomes very difficult to say. I like a few of them. And it's not that, so some of them are stories are hopeful, some stories are dark. So if you were to ask me in terms of a mixture, okay, A New Dawn is a very nice story. It's basically set in Afghanistan, where there is a lot of strife in the various in the people who are there because of the political situation. And a family which is living in a refugee camp has a very bad incident. They lose their child in a blast, and it is about their daughter, their teenage daughter, who basically symbolizes the hope for the people, for the minority community. So that is a very favorite story of mine. It's called A New Dawn. The other one which I enjoyed writing was basically one which was pivoted around humor. It is called Remarriage, because for me it's very easy to write about topics like like pathos or like romance, but it's very difficult to write humor. It's very difficult to make people laugh with your words. So I enjoyed writing that because I thought it came out quite well in the end in terms of the way it tickled the funny bone in people. So I like that. I also liked Absolution quite a bit, which was another story there, which dealt with about how Subedar in the Pakistani force, tries to set free somebody who's been wrongly captured. So there are various of these stories, which there's another story where a house is narrating the event, and an ancient mansion is narrating the event. So there are a few of the stories which are favorites of mine, but I've written all of them, so most of them I feel are good, but these are few of the ones which I really like.
Yes, absolutely. And there's no good or bad writing. It's just about being subjective towards things as far as I've read and seen people. So it's more about being subjective. And it also depends. For example, if I'm writing something right now, probably I like it 10 hours later. But if I see it after 10 days or after a month, I feel like, you know what, this actually needs editing. So I absolutely understand your point, and maybe later in life we all think that we could have improved this part by creating this sort of an experience or this sort of a turn or this.
But this dilemma about not being satisfied with your work is something which plagues everyone. It plagues me also. I mean, just because there was a deadline, I submitted the story. Otherwise, I would perhaps be agonizing over the story for a few days after that. So it does happen. And I think it's a good thing if you're not happy with your work. There's nothing wrong in it. That's the way I look at it.
Okay, because most of the people, most of the budding writers, this is what they usually face. There's a dilemma: is my work good enough? And they keep on editing, they keep on going back. So this is one thing that I thought it's just with the budding writers, and it's not with big shots. So I just got to know this part from you that even you face the dilemma.
No, see, I believe firmly that anybody who writes is always an apprentice. You never become a master. When you write a story on any particular theme, so a lot of us use the same prompt, right? And different stories came out. But you looked at a story and said, oh, this is a wonderful way, it perhaps is much better than mine. So there will always be a better version of your story. There'll always be a better someone who writes better than you. That's a reality. But it's important, obviously, to always take a feedback from readers. So very often when we are not satisfied with our work, it makes a lot of sense to give it to a beta reader, give it to somebody we trust, so that you are able to get a feedback. Because very often, even what happens is the way I write a story. So I have told you a few of my stories which were my favorites. When I was reading the reviews, a lot of them liked a lot of other stories, different stories. Okay, they were not the ones which are necessarily my favorites. So people react differently to a particular work of creativity, and you need to respect that. Okay, and very often if you take that feedback from the reader, it does help a lot in improving your craft. So I feel that that's important.
And sir, since you talked about feedback is very important, so what sort of feedbacks have you received for your work as of now? Have you received any sort of negative feedback? How do you balance criticism with appreciation? So, if you
Okay,
would mind.
it's an interesting question. So normally, I have a very good bunch of friends in my Readomania family, as I call it, who are my beta readers. So whenever I do write something, before I submit it, after I submit it, I'll bounce it off them. So there are 3 4 people who I use to bounce off my stories, and they are very forthright, and they are very they are quite scathing, and they're very honest, and that's very important. Similarly, my daughter and I try to take this 360-degree feedback, because while my stories, I do not really target any particular audience. I feel that they should appeal to all ages. That's what I want. Okay, as a writer. So my daughter, who's like a generation removed from mine, she's extremely scathing. Okay, so there have been times when I have got very good feedbacks from people, but she'll say, no, this is not right. This does not gel in today's times. This is, predated and all of that. So she's a very good sounding board for me, in addition to my group of friends. My wife, of course, has been very, very supportive. Okay, because she sees all this negative criticism hitting, and she tries to balance that out. All right, so that also helps. But as far as the reviews are concerned, the book has got very good reviews. Okay, so I think it's an average of 4.8 or 4.9 on 5. So I have not received very many negative feedbacks, but yes, whenever I do get it, I think it's, as I firmly believe that any writer should be like a sponge. So whether it's good or bad things which have been said about your book, you need to find out what is it that went wrong. So I think it's important. So yes, you need to take both, accept both. In fact, you should welcome negative criticism.
Absolutely, sir. Correctly said that we should welcome negative criticism, but at times, criticism also demoralizes people. But we actually should take it into consideration because it leads to our improvement itself. So, I remember having a conversation with Mr. Shatrujit Nath, who's the author of the Karachi Deception and the Vikramaditya Veergatha series. So, I remember asking him this question as well. I asked him if he's also clueless while writing or if he plans things previously itself. So what do you plan most of the turns before you put pen onto paper, or do you just start writing? So what is your plan while you're going to write?
Okay, as you would have guessed by now, I'm very bad at planning. Okay, so typically I let the muse guide me. So when I start writing a story, yes, I have a general framework because that is very important. Your plot is important, no matter how much of a character writer you are. So I do have a general plot, but I'm not scared if the plot changes. Okay, but sometimes it does happen that I started out with X and I end up with Y, but that happens quite a bit with me.
Yes, exactly. And has it happened to you that you've already written 10,000 words and now you're thinking it's too much of a backstory? So, how do you avoid that thing to not add too much of backstory? Because adding too much backstory doesn't lead you anywhere. So, how do you avoid that part?
You're saying, do I scrap off whatever I've written in terms of if I
Yes,
don't
yes,
like the
yes,
output?
yes.
Okay, let me tell you my writing process. It is perhaps quite unique. So, I don't write a lot and then read what I've written.
Hmm.
I perhaps write 4 lines and read it. Then I write 8 lines and I read the all the 8 lines. Then I will write four more. I'll read all 12. And that's the way I normally progress. I keep reading and rereading what I'm writing. So if I don't like something, I will stop much earlier than I reach 10,000 words. I never reach a situation where I do it. So therefore, I take a lot of time to actually formulate my writing because I read a lot. I keep reading whatever I've written because sometimes I'm not just happy with the flow. Sometimes the cadence doesn't strike me to be right. Okay, sometimes the lilt seems to be out. So I look at I when I read it, now does it also mean that my mood changes and sometimes I look at it very differently? Yes, it happens. It happens. But by and large, and this is something I find very strange, and I've not found too many people who agree with me. But I keep reading whatever I write. So and so I'll write a paragraph, I'll read it, and then I'll go to the next one. I'll not normally keep writing.
Okay, so this was very new for me because what I've heard from most of the slam poets, I've been in contact with Kyle and Ikena, who are world famous slam poets, and I've been in contact with a number of people. So the only one thing that they've always told me was turn off your internal editor while you're writing. And this was something very new. And I think that this sort of progress that you make with your story is beneficial. Sometimes we need to go out of the box to make our story reach another level for the progress of our story so that we're not wasting any time because as far as I know, you definitely had a hectic schedule and all of those things. So in that case, I think your way would be the most suitable for everyone, whoever is into the corporate sector and rushing behind deadlines. So I think we should keep on rereading stuff, whatever we are writing, if I'm not wrong.
No, but Paki, having said that, sometimes, as I was saying, when my muse takes me on and, I find myself fairly breathless when I'm chasing the muse and I keep writing, it has happened. It's happened that I may have written 1,000 words or 1,500 words before I stop to read it. It's happened. But that will only happen if I've suddenly, an idea strikes me and I want to quickly capture that before it escapes. That has happened,
Yeah.
but not doesn't happen too frequently with me.
I absolutely understand, sir. And has it ever happened to you that you've reached a saturation point and now you don't want to write for days? So, do you also procrastinate when you're not writing or working?
I'm a born procrastinator. If you look you think I've said I'm a very reluctant writer. So I do procrastinate, and as I said, I try to race deadlines. Now, obviously, this is not very constructive because it does not lead to quality output. If you're trying to cram a lot of words within a short span of time, obviously the creativity will suffer. Let's not fool ourselves saying that I can do it. It doesn't happen. But having said that, there have been days when I find that it's not working, and I try to do something different in at that point of time, and then try to come back to it, try to revisit it, try to look at it from a distance. I do a number of things. So sometimes I do very crazy things. So my laptop will be there, and there's, it'll have some printed words on it, and I'll take a walk and I'll walk around it and try to think while I look at and read sometimes what is written. So yes, there have been times when, there have been days when I have not written for a long time, but there have been periods of time when I've written like a madman. So I remember one of my novels, which is now with my agent. That is I wrote something in a little over 3 months. All right, because it was just after demonetization. So I run a training and consulting company which does train a lot, do a lot of training for bankers. And because of the demonetization, obviously bankers were very busy at that point of time, 2016 or so. November. And I found that there was not much happening, so I sat and wrote a book in about 3.5 months. So that has also happened, and I used to write diligently every day. Okay, and I suddenly found that I was seized by some kind of a discipline that I could actually bring myself to sit and write, because I was all alone at home and I used to just sit and write instead of watching a movie or doing something.
Well, that is something very fascinating. And so, how much time do you usually take to write a book? Approximately.
So it's a difficult question. So let me put it this way. I have written, as you are aware, I have written largely short stories till now. Although I have written 2 full-length novels, which are again with my agent. One of them, of course, I took a long time to write, in the sense that I had written it, but a lot of people I gave the novel to didn't like it because it's a cross genre. But I refused to change the story. So that is something which I kept reading and changing very frequently. Not the context, but portions of it, and that has been kind of a work in progress for something like 3 years. That has also happened, and I've written a book in 3.5-4 months as well. So there have been two extremes, but by and large, I would say anything between 6 months. Around 6 months is an average time. 6 months, 7 months, around that period of time. Again, it depends upon how engaged you are on your professional front, because at the end of the day, someone has to bring the bacon home, right? So you have to. That is also important.
So do you not see writing as a full-time career at one point in your life?
Absolutely not. I would strongly recommend anyone who thinks of taking writing as a full-time career not to do it until you really see the success. If you see success, by all means do it, but otherwise don't.
I absolutely agree to that part. And so another question, you see, some people say that there is nothing called as fiction, right? Because no matter whatever we are writing, there are some sort of experiences that are attached to us, and we do fiction them and we do fiction them in our writing. So what do you think? Can you write fiction entirely, or can you not write fiction? And what do you prefer reading, fiction or non-fiction?
Oh, I'm a very strong fiction person. I love reading fiction. And I think there are two parts to it. The first part is that the whole concept is that, yes, you do meet people in your life. You do meet different kinds of individuals. And very often they become inspiration for your stories or your plot. It happens to everyone. That is one part. The second thing, of course, I believe very strongly is that you have an imagination, because not everything can be experienced by a person, but at the same time you need to kind of belt out or put out a story there. So you do use your imagination, and for me, imagination has to be a byproduct of what your experiences are. All right, and to that extent, I think fiction, when we talk about fiction, we are basically saying that it may be kind of mimicking life, and it may have existed somewhere. You may have met somebody like that. So to that extent, it is not totally fiction, but yet, yes, as a genre, because you're saying that I'm not talking about an actual living individual, it is fiction, right? That's how we are going to call it fiction. But has that event, or has that episode, or has that not happened with somebody? Absolutely not. It could have happened with someone somewhere in the world. We don't know, and to that extent, it's reality. Yeah. So that's the way I look at it. So so for example, I've got this feedback on the book that the stories look very lifelike. Like it looks like you may have met somebody, or you may be knowing someone who's like this. So I suppose it's if we can call it fiction, but at the end of the day, it may resonate with a particular reader, in terms of his or her experiences, which may be totally divorced from mine. I may never have had that experience. So as far as I am concerned, I think it's fiction, but for that person, it's reality.
Yes, that can happen. That can absolutely happen. And so, how do you see your future? I mean, do you see your future with Bridgepoint itself, or do you see diverting yourself into something else? Because as far as I know, writers are clueless about things most of the time.
Absolutely right. No, so I will continue. Obviously, Bridgepoint is training and consulting is a passion as well. So that will definitely be there. I definitely want to keep writing, and I do want to, write fiction by and large. Although I'm working on a non-fiction right now, but by and large, I would like to stay with fiction. And we'll see how it goes. I actually don't plan too much in advance, as you would have guessed by now.
Yes, that is something even I agree on, because planning sometimes doesn't just happen. And for example, the COVID situation, we never knew that this sort of a situation is ever going to come into our lives. I had to stay at home for 1.5 years and skip on my college. So this was not something that I personally expected. And so, keeping this in mind, we've got a question from the audience. It's from Miss Tanushree Ghosh. She has asked, do you think relationships and human behaviors are changing post COVID?
They are, but I wish they didn't. I'm sure they are, because what has happened with COVID is that it has put us in a different situation. And just linking up to your earlier question, this whatever we're experiencing today would have been fiction in 2019, right? And it's become reality today. I mean, it would have been science fiction. Forget about fiction. It would have been a sci-fi situation what we are in today. But yes, to go back to Tanusri's question, human relationships may get impacted because there is an external pressure which has got created, an external environment which can get very, very frustrating. But I think the strength of endurance of a relationship is this is the time for test of that endurance. And those relationships which stand the test of this particular moment of time are the ones which are enduring, the ones which are going to stay. But yes, it will get impacted. That's true. People will need to, what we call reboot and rejig, and look at the way they evaluate things and so on and so forth.
Right, sir. And in the similar light, she has also asked, what would be the relevance of your stories in the post-COVID period? Would they be the same, or would you perceive them differently?
See, I don't think that the emotions linked to relationships or human psyche are going to go away. Love is going to remain, hate is going to remain, revenge is going to remain, laughter is going to remain. They're all going to remain. So to that extent, the stories will always be relevant, right? The setting may not be relevant, okay, in terms of the fact that there could be a physical change to a particular place I've written about. Because I normally do a lot of research on the background to my stories, on where they are set. I do a fair amount of research, so that of course that could change. Physical appearances, everything can change. There could be a huge change, so that can happen. But the stories themselves, the heart or the soul of the stories, I don't think they will change, because they all have to do or deal with human relationships, and that's going to sustain. Because the whole idea is that humanity has to come out unscathed of COVID, right? And humanity can only come out unscathed if they maintain their values and their.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. And so the next question that I want to ask you is, how do you actually focus on all the ages? Because focusing on all the ages is a very different task all at once. So what are the things that you keep inside your mind that this is what I am going to focus on? Because different things interest different ages. For example, at my age, maybe relationships interest me. Maybe at 40, something else interests me. So, what do you actually keep in your mind while focusing on all the ages altogether?
It's a very good question. So one, of course, is that I have got a point of reference, which is my daughter, because she's 25, so that helps me a lot. I've got another point of reference. I've got friends who are very senior, and of course I've got. So what I do is I try to mix with a cross section of people of different age groups to find out what works for them, what gels for them, what excites them, what depresses them. So that's what I do, and I do fair. And this is something I'm sure every writer does. But I try and observe a hell of a lot. So even if, for example, if I'm going out in those times when I used to go out and I used to go and sit in a bar and have a drink, I used to watch in the way people react with each other, how they're interacting, what is happening. So, being aware of your surroundings very often sometimes helps in trying to keep yourself to get to know what's happening. And then, of course, you can do a number of other things. You can read a number of the social media is another very good place where you get to know what is happening, what is exciting people of various age groups. What do they find relevant? What don't they find relevant? And I try to keep myself abreast to the best of my ability, because I think, frankly speaking, youth is a state of mind. It is less of a state of your body, and it just depends on where you want to project that state of mind, and I think that can be done.
Yes,
That's
so
something which I believe.
yes,
I've never
absolutely.
said for a minute that I have become too old for this. Okay, I try not to say it unless it's a very a primal fear within me
And
prevents me from doing.
And sir, we've received another question from Mr. Goswami. It says, "Has COVID impacted husband-wife, boyfriend-girlfriend relationship?" So I think so. You can answer this question on a very personal front. We wouldn't mind that. So how has your personal life been impacted by COVID? How have your human relationships been, impacted?
Okay, Biswarup Goswami is a childhood friend of mine. We both went to the same school.
Okay.
Frankly speaking, it has not impacted me one bit. Okay. Now, I'm not being cavalier, I'm not being flippant when I say this, but I think when there is an external, an external negative force, I think when you're close to someone, you come closer together, because that's the only way you can fight that external negative event. So very often what happens is, if the external environment is salubrious, if the external environment is conducive, it might so happen that the bondage or the linkage itself can get weak, because you've got other distractions. But when you've got this kind of a situation which we're all being tossed into today, I think the basic relationship has become even more stronger. Because if you have an external force, you're both trying to fight it jointly.
Thank you so much, sir. And any message that you would want to give to the audience and the budding writers?
Audience, I don't know. Budding writers, yes. I think a couple of things. One is that they should keep writing. When we write, that it does happen that sometimes we can get very judgmental about what we write, and we tend to get very critical about what we write, and that can stymie the creative process. So I think they should keep writing. And whilst I'm no one to give this advice, I think there should be a discipline in writing, because I don't have that discipline at all. So you should, if you're really interested in improving your writing or creative skills, you must write every day. That is very important. Whether you are going to junk it, keep it, it does not matter, but it must be like a habit. It's like doing every other thing, like you brush your teeth or you have your breakfast. You must set some time aside for writing. And that has to be an alone time, because I really believe creativity does not happen when you've got a lot of external noise in the environment. It has to be a very me time when you're writing. Okay, so those are the things I tell them. And of course, like I said earlier, you must bounce off what you're writing with people you trust. Take their feedback, be very, very receptive about negative feedback, and try and see how you can improve yourself, because this is improving your craft is a continuous process.
Yes, absolutely. So improving yourself is something that we should actually keep on going forward with, because in between living in our comfort zone, we're actually leaving behind tons of opportunities. So it is very important that we leave our comfort zone behind, and we do focus on the steps that we need to take further, because if we think of giving up, we actually need to close our eyes and think, is this what we actually came into the world for? So there's always a ray of hope that we should keep in our mind. And so one thing that I'd like to ask you is about local authors. So a lot of people have started writing these days. So how do you think local authors can market their book? Because unless you can market your book, there's no point of writing. If you wouldn't be feeling encouraged, obviously you can write for self-improvement and all of these things. But
Sure.
I feel that marketing your book is a very important thing when you are writing a book, something as big as a book. So how do you think local authors can market their book?
So when you're talking of local, I believe you mean Indian authors, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
talking of Indian authors? Yeah.
yes.
So what has happened, fortunately, is that the whole game has changed on its head. If you ask me, the way I've seen the publishing industry change pre and post COVID, it's changed entirely. All right. And I don't think people are really too worried about whether the book is coming out from a very, very well established traditional publisher, or it is coming out by the newer publisher, or even if it is self published. Today, what has happened is that the platform for expressing yourself and reaching out to people has just exploded. So, if you find, for example, now everybody likes, obviously, everybody, that's the dream, cherished dream of all writers, to get published by a very big traditional house. That's everybody wants it, because that is something which, everybody felt that, if I'm published by a Harper or a Penguin or, Hachette or a Bloomsbury, it's very good. But today, the reality is that you do not need to be constrained by that, because today what is happening is there are lots of platforms, digital or otherwise. You can express yourself, you can write a book, you can design the cover, you can get your ISBN number, you can publish it in absolutely all on the desk. So you got KDP, got a number of self-publishing author platforms and so on. So today I believe it's become much easier, and I believe that if you feel that your book is not getting acceptance, or it's taking too long, and it will, because you must understand that the whole mechanics has changed. The whole shop display, the shop sales, they're all gone, right? Until COVID becomes a distant memory, and we get back to reality, or we get back to our normal lives. All this is gone. It's all now online sales. It's all about the eyeballs which are being captured, online sales happening, online reading happening, digital platforms exploding. So I think it has become easier for people actually to write and put what they have. You got platforms like Wattpad. You've got so many of these platforms where you can actually write and express yourself. I think it's
Yes.
just exploded. The whole digital space has exploded. Opportunities have actually multiplied, not decreased.
Yes, that is so right. I remember when I started writing as a child, I used to use Wattpad, and then there were so many other platforms, Your Code and Joto, and so many apps. There were some haiku jamming apps as well. So there was a lot that you can do even right now on these platforms. In fact, the scope has actually increased. So there's this app I would want to tell you about. It's called Bottled, and in that particular app, you can actually handcraft letters to some person from around the globe, and you can send them, and the other person will send you a reply. So it's a very interesting concept, and you can actually write things. You can actually go old school and focus on your writing. So this is something that is very exciting, and writing
Sure.
actually is something that is also related to letters, and it's a very old school concept that fascinates almost everyone in today's world because it's very less see. And I think human relationships can also be linked to letters somehow, so in your stories somewhere in the coming future,
No, no,
somewhere.
there are in one of the stories there is actually a letter which someone writes to someone else. Then it is there in the book.
Okay, that is, I would
Absolutely.
definitely love to read your book, sir. And so, one question we've received from the audience, the question is, what actually pushed you to write stories?
I think initially it was just a lark, saying that I had an idea, so I wrote it, and after that, I mean, after that, it was just a desire. I don't think anybody kind of pushed me, other than the fact that I got appreciation from my near and dear ones, saying that you write well. Why don't you write more? That was about the kind of thing I got. But it always gave me a very crazy thrill, or a strange satisfaction, to be able to think about a certain event and to be able to put it down on paper, have the characters in my mind actually take shape form in flesh and blood and do something, or and that's something which kind of egged me on. So other than that, there has been no really some one major external pressure on, or force or help in my writing. That's not been. But yes, a very very shall I say, a very very conducive environment where a lot of people encouraged me to write. Nobody disparaged, or nobody said that this is not good stuff and so on. And that is, I think, that helped me to an extent.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. And with this, we've actually come to the formal end of the formal part of the discussion. And now we shall be moving into the most exciting part, that is the rapid fire. So, the first question to you, sir, you have to reply very immediately, okay? So, the first question is your favorite hobby.
Watching movies and watching OTT. I mean, you would expect an author to
All
say,
right.
I read a lot, but it's not true.
It's not true. And so, have you been inspired by any movie till now?
Lots of them have inspired me.
Inspired you,
I've
right?
watched lots during this lockdown pandemic. Yeah. But it's all kind of in a cauldron somewhere in my mind right now.
I get it. So, and what's your favorite tourist destination?
Any place which has got a sea and a beach. I love the sea.
All right. So, I think that you're more of a beach person than a mountain person. Do we consider that?
Yeah, although having said that, I did have the, good fortune of visiting places like Antarctica and Alaska and so on. But anything which has got a sea and a beach is very huge favorite of mine as a
Favorite actor?
destination.
Yes, sir. Favorite
Favorite?
actor? Actor.
Actor Tom Hanks.
All right.
Actor,
All
you
right.
said, right? Tom Hanks. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And favorite cuisine?
Okay, I'm a foodie, so anything works. But I quite like Chinese food.
Chinese food. And if someone was writing a biography on you, so what would you want to name it?
Good God. Um, Something like a mirror to me, a window to you, or something like that. Because basically, whatever, if there is any learning to come out of my life, it must be like a window for the others to see. No? So I would name it something
Okay.
like a mirror for me, a window to you, or something like that. A mirror
That's
for
an
me, a
exciting
window to
name.
you.
Definitely, sir. This is a very, very good name, very deeply thought within like a minute or so. So I really like the name. If someone is going to write it, I don't think that you should rethink on this name. You can actually go forward with this name. And so my last question to you would be, how would you describe your life in one word? And what would you have been if not a banker or a writer?
I would have actually joined the theater. When I was a kid, I told my father, he asked me, what do you want to become when you grow up? I said, I want to join Shakespeare Theatre Wala. And he threw me out of the house. I was in class 7 that time. So I definitely wanted to be in the theater. If I was not going to be a banker, that's where I would have been. And what was the other question? Sorry, I think you kind of.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, you're audible. There was a minute,
Am I
for a minute,
audible,
you had
sir?
frozen. Yeah, you're audible. I can hear you.
Okay, I'm
So you had said something else about the
yes, sir.
one part of
So
your
I
question is
asked
what
you
would I
that
have been? Sorry, I think you're
your
freezing
life in
again.
one word.
Life in one word,
Am I audible?
fantastic. Fantastic.
Okay. So
I mean,
that's it for today,
every
sir.
morning
Thank you
I
so
think we should get up and thank that we are alive and we are breathing. Seriously, that is what we should do. We should be grateful for the fact that we're alive and breathing.
Yes, sir, definitely. Because, we all have a different sort of thought process, and each of our problems are equally bigger and equally smaller. It's just how we perceive things. If we think that things are good, things are actually good. If we think that things are bad, things are actually bad. So it's all about perception. How do we see the world like?
I think
So,
your attitude must be bigger than the problem. If your attitude is bigger than the problem, you can overcome it. And I think it's a matter of attitude.
thank you so much, sir. I think there was some inspirational words and a very mind blowing discussion. Thank you so much, sir. And it was a great discussion with you today. Anything
Thank
else
you
that
so
you'd
much, Paki.
anything else, sir, that you'd like our audience to know?
No, absolutely. I think, for those of you who have not yet picked up the book, there are 15 stories, as I've mentioned, dealing with various things. You must pick it up, read it, and give me your feedback. So it's got my email there. You can put up your review on Amazon. It's available on Amazon in both digital as well as the print version. So do pick up the book and let me know what you thought of it. As I say, as you all know, I welcome feedback. So I would love to have your feedback, positive, negative, doesn't matter.
Yes, and I would be the first person to pick up your book, sir, now, because it is
Please
something
do
that
that.
interests me as well. So thank you so much, sir, for being a part. And as we come to the end of this particular session, I'd like to thank everybody associated with this particular session, media partners and people associated from Eternal Quest, all the people we've collaborated with, all the organizations and agencies. Thank you so much, and thank you so much, sir, once again for joining us today. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure having you today. Thank you.
Thanks. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it immensely. And thanks to all the organizers who organized this event. And thanks to everybody who came, who made time to come on a Saturday evening for the event.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks for your support.